This is the Beyond Sports Broadband edition with me, Digvijay Singh Deo. India has lost one of her greatest sons this morning. The legend himself, Balbir Singh Dosanjh, is no more. Three-time Olympic champion, one of those as captain of the Indian hockey team in 1956. A varied guest panel joins me to look back on the life and times of Balbir Senior Sir, as he was known. Randhir Singh is a member of the International Olympic Committee. He's a legend of Indian sport in his own right and someone who's perhaps one of the few people in India to have actually seen Balbir Singh Dosanjh play at the Olympics. V Bhaskaran joins me from Chennai. He was captain of the Indian team which won the gold medal at the 1980 Olympic Games in Moscow. Viren Rasquinha is also an Olympian and former captain of the Indian hockey team, and he is the CEO of Olympic Gold Quest. And Amit Bose is a documentary filmmaker who's also an author who co-wrote My Olympic Journey, a book on 50 of India's Olympians with me, and he spent a lot of time with Balbir Singh Senior as well. And I don't think this is the right occasion for all of us to get together during this lockdown, but I just felt I should get all of you on board just to celebrate the life of Balbir sir. And Randhir, let me start with you because you actually saw him play. They say that on his day, he was one of the deadliest center forwards the sport of hockey has seen. And in 1952, where you were there in Helsinki, he actually scored 5 goals, which is still a world record.
I remember the matches. Don't forget that I was not that old then. I was very young. But I remember him play, and I remember him being he was such a great gentleman, besides being such a great hockey player. And his memories and the way the Indian team was led by him and the way Indian team was clapped through all the matches and all the everyone was expecting absolute miracles from India, and he himself, who was such a great player, when he was scoring all the goals and the whole stadium would get up and clap for him. I still remember that very well. And there's another very interesting part which I remember of those matches was my mother was sitting with me, who then passed away 1 year later. And the only clip, in fact, we have of a movie of hers is from his match itself. And in fact, he very kindly gave me that film. I still have that film with me.
Okay, but also, Mr. Singh, just because perhaps you are the senior most here, back in the day, what did it mean? I think today's generation will not connect that much to Balbir Singh Senior, but all through the time when I have interacted with him, and I guess Viren and Bhaskaran sir will also agree with that, he always harped on the fact that when he won his medals, he won it for an independent India. He said, I never marched under the Union Jack. I marched out under the Indian flag, and for him, it was the proudest moment in his life to see India sort of win those hockey gold medals, because back then in the late 40s, early 50s, it was the only identity India had apart from being a young nation was because of its hockey.
No, there's no doubt that playing under the Indian flag meant so much more to the sportsman at that time. And he was very correct in saying that from 52 onwards, then he played when he played in won all the 4 gold medals that he did. He played under the Indian flag, and the matches that were played before the war were played under the British flag, the Union Jack. And if any sportsman of that era would have felt so much prouder, because it was something new that had come up then, that you had the honor of playing for your country and you were playing under the Indian flag. And the national flag always matters to the sportsman.
Okay. Bhaskaran sir, your memories of Balbir Saab growing up, because for all of us, we only read about his exploits, but perhaps when you were starting out playing hockey, the legend of Balbir was completely at that point of time, India sort of, lived and breathed hockey back then. Like the times have changed now, but back then it was hockey which ruled the roost.
Well, I was very fortunate in 1970. I remember I was first called for the combined university selection at Patiala. And he was a selection committee member that time in Patiala. And I was playing centre-half. And I remember that team had P. Kalaya, Balbir Singh, Surjit Singh, all these people are there in the committee. And coming from Madras, I was not knowing anything about Hindi. first of all. And after the trials, he came to me and said, around me and said, "Beta, you got a good aggressive game, but that won't take you much longer in Indian team. You need to do something else. You must start playing forward line like inside left or right inside." So next day, he told me that you play left inside. So I played left inside along with center forward Ajit Singh, Gagan Ajit's father. So it was so nice to learn from these great legend that if you want to play hockey, that too from Madras, coming and attending the camp, when we leave here at Bombay also is the same. Bombay boys also will have the same problem when we come to Patiala. And mind it, that the thing he told me was that if you want to play a total hockey for India and to get an India color, he didn't say about Indian Olympics. He only told India color. And you want to play, you need to play multiple positions. And I still feel that that simple advice has put me to 2 Olympics, 3 World Cups and 2 Asian Games, because in the first World Cup, I still remember, I was not in the starting 11. Because I was playing inside left, I got in a team the best 16 as a 12th player, along with Cedric Bombay as goalkeeper. So we must understand that legend, not only in the field of hockey as a scorer, but his observation about the future of hockey, that's called total hockey, that was found by him in 1970. And later on, it was followed by Balbir Singh, who made all the players to play in 1 or 2 positions more, because that's the way we can challenge any of the European upcoming countries. Because in 1772, India was very good with skills, playing on grass, and so many best things Indian players had. But the best 16 could be people who could play multiple positions. So I was fair. It happened to me in the Montreal Olympics. I was all selected because I could play 1 more position extra. So those are the, like we have this cricket team selected, 4 bowlers, all-rounder, then opener, then also can play number 3. You know, these kind of things, what he told me was true to me, and that I followed it. And later on, he became a very good friend of mine. And I had visited Chandigarh many times. He had come to Bangalore, and I took my wife and introduced my wife to Balbir Singh ji. He said, "You got into the wrong person." And wife still keeps telling me, because he won't be away in Chennai. Mostly he'll be traveling like me. When I was playing, I had the same problem with my wife. So that's why I remember Balbir Singh as a great man, a great friend of mine. But I met him just about 3 months before in January. I think he was a great sanitation of all the sports people, not only hockey players. All the people are there. Badminton, Gopichan, Sidhu, wrestlers, boxers. He was a lovable character by the all people concerned, not only hockey. That's the greatness of Balbir Singh.
Okay, Viren, as Mr. Bhaskaran was saying, he had this remarkable ability to connect. I mean, imagine Amit and I were both at least 60, close to 60 years age difference between us, but he sort of took us under his wings and always made us feel at home. And that's the beauty, wasn't it? Even when he was interacting with people like you, he always loved having people who could be with him and talk hockey. The most pleasure he got was to be on a hockey field and be around people connected with Indian hockey, isn't it, Viren?
Absolutely, Digvijay. I just want to say, first of all, it's an honor for me to be on the same panel as 2 legendary Olympians in Randhir sir and Bhaskaran sir. And Bhaskaran sir was my coach for the Indian team for many years, and I enjoyed playing so much under him and enjoyed his camps. Obviously, it's a sad day today that we're coming together because of the sad demise of Balbir sir. But yeah, like you rightly said, Digvijay, people of our generation were too young, unfortunately, and we never got to see the great Balbir Singh Senior play hockey. There aren't many videos as well, and it was fascinating for me to listen to Randhir sir talk about the fact that he actually watched him in that Helsinki 1952 Olympic tournament, where Balbir sir went on to score 5 goals. But what struck me, and I have had the pleasure of meeting Balbir sir many times off the field in the last few years. We interacted at many events, and he was always such a fun-loving person. He was magnanimous about all sports, despite him being a legend. And for me, maybe in the top 3 greatest players, arguably in Indian hockey of all time. But he was such a humble person. He was always so much fun to be around. I remember the last time I met him, he was walking with a walking stick, and he said, and he met me and he told me, "I wish this was a hockey stick, not walking." So, always full of humor, always wanted to know about other sports, always had an encouraging word for everyone. So just a lovely, humble person, and truly such a great model. Great loss for not just Indian hockey, but Indian sport and for India. And if I'm not mistaken, Digvijay, I think he was the first sports person ever to get the Padma Shri award in 1957.
Yes, he was, Viren. I know, and I'm just going to bring you up on that because you have to leave for another meeting. One of the biggest regrets he had, and I think this is something which sort of pains me as a sports fan, is that both Dhyan Chand and Balbir Singh Senior, who were two of the greatest players, 3 gold medals each consecutive, they never were, the country never sort of thought of recommending them for the Bharat Ratna. In fact, Balbir sir always had this regret when I spoke to me that, why is it that I'm not considered? Why have I have only been, blessed to be honored with the Padma Shri, and that's it. Same with Dada Dhyan Chand. I mean, Padma Bhushan he received, and then there's been a lot of campaigns to sort of push his name forward, but other sports persons have got there. And 2 icons who sort of put India on the world map as a sporting nation, they seem to have been forgotten.
Yeah, I agree with you. Meaning, I cannot imagine an achievement on par in any other field to win 3 Olympic gold medals. That's an incredible achievement. I mean, if you ask players of today's generation, just to win any Olympic medal of any color is so tough. So I can imagine back in the day to win 3 consecutive Olympic gold medals, to be a part of that Indian team which was so competitive. I think incredible achievement. And Dada Dhyan Chand, Balbir sir, I think they deserve the highest possible honors, and we as a country should never forget them.
Okay, thank you, Viren. I know you've got to move on for another meeting, but thank you so much for actually taking time out between those meetings and joining me. Amit, let me get you in, because while the rest of all of them are all sporting greats, you and I sort of saw Balbir Saab from a different angle, and you in fact interacted with him more from behind the lens, and we had this great relation with him. In fact, we both requested him to come and be the chief guest for that book launch as well. And we both were categorical, Amit, that it had to be him. We would wait for him to return from Canada, because he went and spent 6 months of the year with his family in Canada, and then 6 months in India. And we were categorical that we would wait for him to come back. Your thoughts of him as a subject, what he must have been 92, 93, when we sort of went and spent that day with him?
Yes, Digvijay. Firstly, I would like to say the first impressions of him were that he was sort of very proud of what he had achieved, and he was so humble about the entire thing, about winning 3 unprecedented medals back to back. I still remember the way he explained that first medal that he had won in 1948, and I just want to read out what he had said to us, which is in our book, that victory had never been sweeter. To stand in the middle of Wembley, see the tricolour rise, and hear the national anthem play was an out-of-the-world experience. Looking at the flag, I felt I was rising along with it, flying in the air. It may sound dramatic, but in 1948, it was all too real and a rare feeling. Even that day, seven decades later, when he was explaining to us, he had that excitement in his eyes that he had won that first medal for India after independence. So my memory of him is of that moment where even after 70 years, he was sort of excited in the same way as he was on that very day in 1948.
Yes, I remember, and I think Mr. Bhaskaran was there with me later on another show we were on, and he spoke, and I think a lot of people in the audience had tears in their eyes. But Mr. Randhir Singh, what does it tell you about the man also that I keep talking about the fact that how proud he was to play for India, but he was first and foremost a patriot. He refused to join the Punjab Police, which was the big sort of employer pre-independence, because the Punjab Police were sort of ill-treating the freedom fighters and had even jailed his father. So he refused to join the Punjab Police when he was coming up as a hockey player. And then he actually joined the CPWD here in Delhi, and the Punjab Police was then headed by Sir John Bennett, who actually sent a police party to arrest him, and he was forcibly signed up, arrested, taken back to, I think it was Firozpur, Kant or Amritsar, and then he was forcibly made to join the Punjab Police. He was a very, very proud Indian, and he talks about the fact, and Mr. Bhaskaran was with me when he said those words. He said, "My name is Balbir. I am Sikh by birth, but I am secular by choice and Indian to my core."
Perfect gentleman, Diggy. He was perfect gentleman, no doubt. And he was so, as everyone has mentioned, he was a very humble man. And what he'd seen of the world and what he'd seen of Indian sport, and all through the years that he did. But unfortunately, as all of them have mentioned, he was never honored the way he should have been honored. I mean, he is one of the sportsmen who should have definitely have been given the Bharat Ratna. He rightfully deserved it. And I still feel it's not too late. They should still honor him with a Bharat Ratna. And he's been, as a great sportsman, as has been mentioned, 4 Olympic gold medals is not a joke for anybody. And then to be such a humble and perfect gentleman, I mean, you cannot get a better idol in life than to have a man like him. He had no inhibitions to talk to any youngster, talk to anybody, sit and talk to them at their level, and never tried to push himself in any. I've seen him in crowds and crowds, and I saw a lot of him with my father, and he was not the type of person who would sort of push his way through or try and push his way in, and he never did it. So I think it's our duty, and all of us should be together and see that he's honored after even though now, and at least he's given the Bharat Ratna and he's been honored properly and remembered for what he achieved for the country, and how proud he was of doing so for playing for India.
Mr. Bhaskaran, there's an interesting bit he told Amit and me. He said, when he finally built his house in Chandigarh, where he was there, he said that, people used to come home and ask him that, show us what you won, all your trophies and all. They're very limited trophies. He has his 3 Olympic gold medals he had. But he always used to say, my wife used to come out with an empty garland.
White thread.
Just ask him, what is this? And he used to say, well, these are the flowers people put on me when I came back from winning these gold medals for India. The flowers have all dried and fallen off. Only this empty sort of, the frame of the garland remains. That was the beauty of the man, as Mr. Randhir Singh was saying, humble to the core, and always was willing to go that extra mile for the promotion of hockey. And I think the biggest regret he probably had was not to see India win another medal in hockey after your team won the gold in 80.
Well, Dick, I think I remember I was one of the fortunate Olympian, I would say, not being under him as a player, but I had a lovely trip to Pakistan in 89 with him when the Pakistan Federation honored me and Balbir ji at Lahore. And I was so shocked that one or two journalists had come down and asked Mr. Balbir ji, do you remember in 1956 Olympics, he was marshaled by one of the best center of Pakistan had ever produced, Anwar Khan. So Anwar Khan's duty was to just marshal him throughout the game. Nothing. He's got no business to stop a ball. He's got only one business given to him, Pakistani center, was to stop Balbir Singh. So that was his great win. 89, a story was made on the next day that Anwar Khan has come back with a garland, not to marshal Balbir, to appreciate his game, where he beat him twice, thrice, and saw at Melbourne, where India beat Pakistan in 56. So I think these are the best moments where I could see myself because people have read only in books or maybe heard through somebody else. But I saw him in person when Pakistani press was, praising him, and I was so happy that one among them was hidden with him in most of the photos that could come there. And the 1975 World Cup, not to forget about that, he was a manager. One incident the player used to tell me was that against Germany, the match was full of rain and couldn't continue the game. The match was continued in a different school after some hours, but the players were restless and they were only wondering what will happen, because India is going to finals next game. So as manager, he managed the organizers. He accepted that we can go and play there against the wish of the players. That's what his managerial post was there. He held his soft corner for everything and made Ajit Pal to agree to the match to be played there. And no doubt, his acceptance as a very soft manager was helping him to play the finals, and India won the World Cup, that too against Pakistan, and he is remembered as the best player, 3 medals and a World Cup team. And as Randhir said, I think we all should vouch for him that he deserves the best treatment from the government of India. And because there are lot of people in other world has been respected and been memorable to the Indian people. But here is one man, I think, along with a lot of sports people, but here he stands alone, not only for hockey, but the entire International Olympic Committee. So that should be the pride of Indian today's loss. Though we lost him, but he is not lost, but he is with us with a grace to remember about him.
Yes, as I said, this was also about celebrating the life and legacy of Balbir Saab, or Balbir Sir, as Amit and I used to call him. But Mr. Singh, a couple of years back, I was actually in Lausanne. I'd actually called you from there because I wanted to go and see the Olympic Museum. And there are very few Indian sports persons who are featured in the Olympic Museum. There's Abhinav Bindra's gun from 2008. There's Mary Com's gloves from 12. And there's also quite a big section on Balbir Sir. I actually saw his video talking about the 1948 Olympics. And in fact, the IOC in 2012, when you were a member there, actually named him one of the 16 icons of the modern Olympics, starting from 1896. He's in the same, putting him up on the same level as the likes of Jesse Owen and others. I think that praise at that level is sort of very rare to come. I don't see any other Indian sports person who's been on that level. Mr. Singh, can you hear me?
Hello, Diggy, you are talking to me?
Yeah, that question was to you. The question was to you, Mr. Singh.
Yeah, no, the question, there's no doubt that there are very few people in the Olympic Museum that have been, whose lives are being celebrated by the Olympic movement. And yes, obviously there's nobody, there's very few who have been 4 Olympic gold medals and the records that they've had and the amount of goals they've scored. So he has been highly respected and liked by the Olympic family. But he was a person who deserved it. I mean, his attitude towards life, his attitude was besides what he was as a sports person. Mr. Bhaskaran mentioned, and the other colleagues of ours who were on the line, mentioning about what he did and how he played. But the question, I'm not a technical person as far as hockey is concerned, but I would look at him as an idol in my life, and I would look at him as an Olympian and a great sportsman who what he did for sport and what he did for hockey or what he did for Indian sport, or what he did really for the youth in this country. But that is what is important. And what is there in the Olympic Museum is for all of you to see. And I was very happy that you went and saw that. But it's important that we should, unfortunately for us, we don't have a proper museum of that world class, or for our sportsmen in India as well. Now, if we had these things, the children today would be looking at it. Otherwise it's for people who from an older generation like all of us are, that you feel a bit disappointed that there's hardly anything, there's hardly any history, hardly anything being mentioned about the achievements of that generation that have been, and they've gone past. And now Sir Balbir Singh has brought it again to the fore, that by his passing away, people are remembering him. We are all celebrating his life, and it's rightfully so, because you don't find sportsmen like that. I mean, it's somebody wins one medal or somebody wins two medals, and as Mr. Bhaskaran mentioned, it's a great achievement. But to go and win 4 gold medals and go and win them and be a gentleman and really not bother what's happening in life, or carried on with life as it happened, or then was a manager of the team that went to coach of the team that went for the World Cup. I mean, all those things are important achievements in his life, but how many people know it? And so these are the things that we should be able to, and the government should recognize, and everyone should recognize the greatness of that gentleman.
Mr. Singh, you spoke about the museum. Actually, Balbir Saab had a very bad experience because there was talk of setting up a museum somewhere in Patiala at the old palace belonging to your family, and he donated his 3 blazers there. And what happened was he never saw them again. He kept running from pillar to post actually to get those blazers back, never got it back. So finally went and stitched a new blazer for himself, be it as cold as it was here in Delhi or as hot as it was during the summer months at the National Stadium. He always wore that. But Mr. Bhaskaran, in fact, I remember we were at a function together some years back, and your team, your 80 gold medal winning team actually presented him with the Lifetime Achievement Award. That was a special moment, and some memories which we sort of remember from that felicitation.
Well, I think I spoke on the same day that being with him was a great honor than winning an Olympic medal in 80, because he had a triple gold medal on his neck. I admire him whenever I met him on a function. He was decorated with a beautiful medal, and proud to have it on his neck, on his blazer around, with a red turban on him, and a beautiful red tie matching, excellently dressed like an army officer. I think these are the good, where I met him there, and the entire player were actually really, I would say that they're so proud they didn't want to go near him, because he was so respected person on that stage. I remember that day when everybody was on the stage, and including Leander Pace joined for the photograph. I remember that situation when everything went on well, and Mr. Balbir came up on the dais. Leander Pace came rushing along with his father, Dr. Pace, and stood for a photo. So that was the greatness of his presence in any function. And I would add on one more thing, like Mr. Randhir was talking about the museum, and you talk about his name being there, one of the 16 in 2012 Olympics. Because I always travel with the history. I went to Lausanne on my own with my family, and I went to International Olympic Committee office. I wanted to see what India has got in the library. You won't believe, the lady who was sitting there, I never asked about me. I only told I'm an Olympian, and I just said so and so. Immediately she said, you don't have to pay any fees, walk in, and she gave me the page number. I said I wanted to see 1952 team, 56 team, and was a captain, and Balbir Singh. 4 pages about Balbir Singh. His photos, which I would definitely say that we miss everything in India. The museums create players. The museum gets back. Why we're not having any museum? I think with Randhir's influence in Delhi, I think every sportsman would love to give. We have a wax museum in London. We have a wax museum in Hong Kong. But why not India? India has produced great people. These kind of people should be not talked about only one day. They should be seen every day by the school and colleges. And I think I go with him, and everything can be done if Randhir can take the initiative. What a lovely museum on each Olympian, each athlete. In fact, Randhir itself has got how many Olympics. He will be the highest Olympian next to
Olympics, Asian Games, gold. Yes.
What is the problem? How will Randhir be known among the shooters? Because he has been there. I mean, I have seen him in the Montreal Olympics. We had breakfast together. I never knew much about, because he is from a Raja family. I had only lived in his father's Patiala palace as a player. But, such a great man giving that lovely palace for the sports. I think hats off to Randhir and his family. And this situation should be also an enrollment that we think of a lovely museum for Indian people to see what India has produced, not only by paper on a media, just for a few hours. It should be for a permanent place. A museum for sports people is a must.
Okay,
it will be contribution for the whole India.
That's a great point. I think both you and Mr. Singh made, and Mr. Singh's left us. But Amit, I think that was another idea, wasn't it? When we actually figured out what we wanted to do with the Olympics, we thought that a lot of these stories needed to be told. They were not being told. And back at the time when we were working once upon a long time, more than 15 years back, when we started to do a series on Indian sport, we couldn't find anything written. So we actually had to do all our research. Ultimately, Amit, that's that. We need to sort of get and collate our history, which is what we sort of attempted. But for you, final word, how would you like to remember Balbir Sahib? Some small anecdotes from those meetings we had with him over the course of our time of knowing him as journalists, as authors.
Well, Diggy, there are no anecdotes, but my only takeaway from those meetings was that how humble he was. Here he is, one of the greatest sports person, perhaps the oldest living Olympian in India and in the world. He was so humble, and his humility sort of put me under pressure, in that sense. And that's my takeaway from him. A man who was so successful, an icon, can be so humble. Look at the players now. Look at the Indian cricket team. Look at hockey players. They express their bravado, but with Balbir Singh, he expressed himself with his humility. That is my main takeaway from those meetings, Digvijay.
Yes, his humility and his ability to never give up without a fight. This wasn't the first time he actually had this health battle. Sadly, this time he couldn't win this battle, but a couple of months back, he was in hospital for 6-7 months and still came out fighting and waiting to go another round with life. It's been a long life. It's been a long life which has seen lots of ups and downs, but he always took it on the chin. Like a good sports person, he always took it on the chin. There were many incidents he was very upset about. He used to express to us when we used to talk to him. He even mentioned it in his chapter in our book. But he always felt that once you've achieved something in life, it's you who has to take a step back and allow the others, even if it's to your detriment, you should allow the others to, sort of move ahead. And he never considered himself to be an impediment to someone else. And I think today when India sort of has moved on, we're all stuck in this lockdown. I think, sadly, he will not get the farewell that he should have got. At least there's a state funeral for him in Chandigarh. But India owes a lot to Balbir Singh Senior. The very fact that, not much would be known about him to this current generation is perhaps one of the reasons I requested all of you to come together at this time to just, celebrate the man. Thank you so much, Bhaskaran sir. I know it's not the best of time, but I thank you so much for actually, in the middle of this lockdown, joining us just to pay tribute to an extraordinary man. Amit, thank you as well. And also thanks to Viren and Raja Randhir Singh, who had to leave this meeting. Balbir sir, thank you for the memories, and your legacy will never be forgotten.
And his family too. Kabir and his family. Take care. And we all love with you, and the whole country is with you. And we can say a lovely bye-bye to Balbir sir.